NATO Forces for Team Yankee covers Canada's home front as well as Europe. This means you get access to some unique vehicles. Things like the Grizzly and Cougar light armoured vehicles. These six-wheel vehicles fill the role of armoured personnel carrier and fire support respectively. Battlefront have generously sent me these kits for review. Join me for a look inside the box. These are the Grizzly and Cougar box sets for Canadian forces in Team Yankee. Part of the NATO Forces release, these light armoured vehicles form part of Canada's home forces, fighting against the Soviet invasion in Red Dawn. The Grizzly Transport APC box set contains 5 vehicles, while the Cougar Armoured Troop box has 4. These are both resin and metal kits. Grizzly and Cougar came out of a 1974 program to develop a light vehicle, mainly to equip Canadian Reserve units. Wheeled vehicles are cheaper to maintain and operate than tracked APCs, making them an attractive option for training and second-line forces. The chassis selected was based on a 6x6 version of the Swiss Moag Piranha. Production was undertaken by General Motors in Canada, commencing in 1976. The Grizzly is the armoured personnel carrier. It has a crew of 3, commander, driver and gunner, plus room to carry a 6-man infantry section. Armament is a 50 caliber Browning machine gun and a 7.62mm gun, mounted in a small Cadillac gauge turret. The Cougar was originally designed as a reconnaissance vehicle. It mounted the turret from the Scorpion CVRT with a 76mm main gun and coaxial machine gun. Cougar's crew is 3 men, commander, driver and gunner, with room for a 2-man dismount team in the rear. The 76mm L23A1 gun fired HE and HESH rounds, as well as smoke and canister ammunition. Although originally used for reconnaissance, Cougar was used as a fire support vehicle for some armoured units in the 1980s and 90s. Although not part of the heavy 4th Canadian Mechanised Brigade Group in Europe, NATO war plans called for the Canadian Air Sea Transportable Brigade Group to reinforce Norway in wartime. That would have put Grizzlies and Cougars on the ground there. Canada did use these vehicles in a number of United Nations peacekeeping missions. Retired AVGPs were sold to Uruguay, and about 100 Grizzlies were transferred to African Union peacekeeping forces in Sudan. If we look at the back of the Grizzly box, there's an exploded assembly diagram and a picture of a completed and painted kit. Assembly looks very straightforward, with just 5 parts. The wheels and suspension on each side is cast as a single piece. This should avoid any fiddly assembly of individual wheels. Just clean up and align the wheels for each side and glue them on. The turret is also a complete piece, including gun barrels, with only the hatch to glue in. Each box has parts to build 5 vehicles. Grizzly mechanised platoons are either 3 or 4 vehicles, plus one for a HQ. The back of the Cougar box is similar. Again, the assembly diagram and a picture of a painted example. The turret is a resin piece, with a metal hatch and gun and mantlet piece, bringing the total parts count to 6. You only get 4 Cougars in a box. That's okay. Cougar armoured troops are 3 to 4 vehicles with a squadron HQ of 2 or 3. So 1 box is enough to make an attached Cougar troop for a Grizzly company. 2 boxes will be enough to make 2 minimum strength compulsory troops and a squadron HQ for the Cougar armoured squadron. Let's look at the parts. Here's the parts for the Grizzly box. Each of the 5 vehicles has 5 parts, and there's a resin sprue of commander figures, many more than you'll need. The detail on the resin hulls is good, and looks nice and sharp. The Grizzly hull has a hatch behind the driver's position. As far as I know, that's the commander's position. Plus there's roof hatches on the hull rear for the dismounts, and what look like vision blocks and even small arms firing ports on the hull side. This is the Grizzly turret. Apart from the hatch, it's a single-piece metal part. It's a one-man turret operated by the gunner. Armament is a 50 caliber heavy machine gun, as well as a 7.62mm C6 light machine gun. There are 8 smoke discharges, mounted forward on either side of the turret in banks of 4. The small turrets look good. There are some mould lines and some barrels are wonky, but nothing too hard to clean up or straighten up here. Each turret has a separate hatch piece that can be posed open or closed. The wheel and suspension parts will need a bit more work. Some are relatively clean, others have significant flash and mould lines that will need to be trimmed and sanded. Again, not terrible, but definitely more work than the turrets. There are no left and right wheel pieces. They're all the same. The wheel sets are much better than individual wheels, and the connecting part gives a nice big mating surface to glue. There are also posts and notches on the wheels and hull to aid alignment. However, I still got some slightly wonky wheels, even with plenty of dry fitting and sanding. But these issues are part and parcel of resin-wheeled vehicles. Some cleanup and fitting is always required. The end result looks fine with a bit of work. The hulls of Grizzly and Cougar are significantly different. There's no commander's hatch on the Cougar hull. The commander is positioned up in the two-man turret with the gunner. This gives him better visibility and access to the turret optics. The side of the Cougar lacks the vision ports, and the top deck has no passenger hatches. Behind the rear wheel on each side is the propeller for amphibious propulsion. These were removed later as part of a refit program, replaced with simple stowage bins. The Cougar's turret is taken from the British Scorpion CVRT. It's a two-man turret armed with a low-pressure 76mm L23A1 gun. The gun fires HE, HESH and smoke, as well as canister. Coaxial armament is a C6 light machine gun, and there are 8 smoke discharges. The turret is resin, with metal parts for the gun and mantlet and the commander's hatch. Again, some cleanup will be required, but no more than expected. Make sure you install the mantlet with the coaxial machine gun on the left, the same side as the commander's hatch. It's hard to tell from the assembly diagram as the part shown is quite different in detail from the supplied kit piece, but trust me on this one. Again, you get a resin sprue of commander figures if you want to model the turret hatch open. Here are the finished vehicles. With a bit of work, they both build up into nice little kits. Having both the APC and the fire support wheeled vehicles makes for a nice force mix too. The wheel assemblies make fitting the wheels easier, and overall the kits have a small parts count. A wheeled APC option for the Canadians is fun. It makes a change from M113 tracked APC infantry transports, although historically Cougar and Grizzly would mainly have been fielded within Canada, not in Europe. However, they were part of the Canadian Air-Sea Transportable Brigade Group, designated to reinforce Norway during the Cold War. Grizzlies can be used as the infantry platoon transports in Cougar and Coyote armoured squadrons, as well as in the Grizzly Mechanised Company. You can take Cougar as a fully armoured squadron of their own, or include a single troop as fire support in the Grizzly Mechanised Company. Having the 76mm gun gives the infantry formation some nice organic firepower. This is the Cougar armoured troop stats from the NATO Forces book. I'm not going to cover all of it in depth, just a quick look. The unit has the amphibious and infrared special rules. Skill is a nice 3+, but counterattack and assault are 5+. Cougar is for reconnaissance and fire support, not close combat. Hit on a 4+, Cougar's armour is light, just 1 front and side and 0 on top. The armour was only designed to stop small arms and shell splinters. Tactical move is the standard 10 inches or 25 centimetres, with OK cross-country performance and a high road dash speed. But being a wheeled vehicle, the Cross is high at 5+. These won't go where a tracked APC can go over rough ground. The 76mm gun has a 24-inch or 60cm range, with a halted rate of fire 2 and moving of 1. Anti-tank is 14, not up to taking on many tanks, but sufficient for lighter armoured targets, or side shots. Firepower is a 2+. The gun gets the heat, slow firing and smoke special rules. Direct fire smoke can be nice to blind an enemy. However, slow firing adds a +1 to hit if you fire on the move, and the HESH round is susceptible to special armour, like ERA or bazooka skirts. The 7.62mm coaxial gun doesn't have the AA keyword, so you're not going to be using it against aircraft or helicopters. The Grizzly's stats are broadly similar. It loses infrared, but can carry 2 infantry or gun teams as passengers. The 50 caliber heavy machine gun replaces the Cougar's 76mm gun, and this gets the anti-helicopter keyword. The turret's main gun has good enough elevation for the game to give these transports a shot at attacking helicopters. So that's the Grizzly and Cougar wheeled APC kits for Canadian forces in Team Yankee. Both build up into nice kits. These are resin and metal rather than plastic kits, but that's not really a big issue. I might have been more sceptical if the wheels were individual parts, but the combined wheels and suspension sets keeps the parts count low and manages alignment issues as well as possible in this medium. As you'd expect, there are bent gun barrels and mould lines that need cleanup, but nothing major. The all-metal Grizzly turret was probably the right call. I'd have hated to be trying to stick gun barrels onto a resin piece that size, and again, it means fewer parts. Grizzly and Cougar give Canadian Home Forces a slightly cheaper infantry transport option, as well as a reasonably useful direct fire support option as well. Technically, they should be operated on Canadian soil, but given their wartime role supporting Norway and their regular use in European exercises, I see no reason why you wouldn't run these in Europe, particularly in combination with a Norwegian list from Nordic forces. Do you run Canadians? Are Grizzly and Cougar an enticing option? How do you plan to use them? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks to Battlefront for supplying these kits for review. Fog of War is the content partner for the NATO Forces release. This means I get early access to some of these kits, but my opinions and reviews are still my own. Thanks for watching. See you next time.